In today's video, I'm covering chapter 6, Plato, Apology. This is Socrates' address to the jurors. This is one of the very amazing chapters that I've read. It's more inclined towards spirituality and what is truth. General note: this excerpt is from Plato's Apology. The Greek word apologia, means an explanation or a defense. Autobiographical note. Plato comes from a distinguished family and was a pupil of Socrates. After Socrates was condemned to death, he withdrew from Athens and travelled for a number of years in Italy and Egypt. On his return, he founded his academy in a suburb of Athens, the first European university, an institute of pure research. The next 20 years of his life were spent in directing his school, lecturing and discussing philosophical and mathematical questions. He died at the age of 81. Interestingly, tradition has it on record that Plato was a nickname given to him because of his broad brow and good looks. Interestingly, tradition has it on record that Plato was a nickname given to him because of his broad brow and good looks. Socrates was supposedly ugly. About the book. In Plato's Apology, Socrates, son of a sculptor and a midwife, born in Athens about the year 470 BC, is on trial to defend himself against an allegation made by Meletus, a fellow Athenian. Meletus has accused Socrates of corrupting the youth of Athens and of not believing in the gods of the city-state. While defending himself, Socrates states, "What has caused my reputation is none other than a certain kind of wisdom." What kind of wisdom? Human wisdom, perhaps. Socrates then cited the story of his friend Chaerephon, who went to an oracle when they were younger. The oracle told Chaerephon that no one was wiser than Socrates. Upon hearing this, Socrates made it his duty to question men with established reputations who were believed to be the wisest in Athens. Socrates' goal was to see if he could find one man truly wiser than himself. He stated, "In my investigation in the service of God, I found that those who had the highest reputation were nearly the most deficient, while those who were thought to be inferior were more knowledgeable." Ultimately, Socrates made enemies as he exposed the ignorance of men. Greece in the 5th century BC. In order to understand apology, it is important to understand a little of Greek history and the uneasy times that Socrates lived in. In the 5th century BC, Greece was a country split up into a number of small independent states. These states, of which The most eminent were Corinth, Sparta, and Athens. Cooperated only when they faced external threat. When Athens rose to be a moral and intellectual leader, a number of Greek states, jealous of its power, formed a coalition to oppose its supremacy. The Peloponnesian War began in 431 BC and ended in 401 BC with the defeat of Athens. With these military disasters, Socrates saw Athens develop from a democracy into a limited democracy, and the end of Peloponnesian War was followed by the rule of the 30 tyrants. Tyrant originally meant absolute monarch or dictator. It was during these turbulent years that Socrates lived, and it was under this regime that Socrates was prosecuted and put to death. Athenian trials had juries but no judges. The size of the jury varied according to the importance of the case. The archon or presiding officer had no power to sum up or instruct the jury, and the verdict was passed at a mass meeting. Often present at this meeting were people who had not heard the evidence or arguments. In the case of Socrates, the main prosecutors were three. One, Meletus, a minor poet who also wrote tragedies, took the leading part. Second was Lycon, was a leading orator of the day. And third was Anytus, a democratic leader who had done well but whom Socrates had antagonized by suggesting that he should bring up his son to a better profession than his own, which was tanning. Socrates was the defendant. Both sides pleaded in person, for no side could be represented by counsel. However, speeches could be composed by speech writers. In the case of Socrates, the jury brought a verdict of guilty. Then followed a curious procedure. The prosecutor proposed a penalty, but the defendant had the right to make a counter proposal. Socrates flippantly suggested that he should be allowed to dine regularly in the city hall, an equivalent in today's world of being on the civil pension list. Had he quietly agreed to exile, his words would have been accepted. Socrates also offers the jury some provocative insights on the nature of death. To begin, he tells them that he is not afraid of death. He says that emotions follow from knowledge, and since he has no knowledge of what death is, he has no feelings or emotions about death. Socrates also has emotions if they are first authorized by reason. So it is illogical for him to be afraid of death when he knows nothing about it. To fear death, gentlemen, is no other than to think oneself wise when one is not, to think one knows what one does not know. Apology 32. Socrates asserts that there is good hope, that death is a blessing. Apology 41. And he has two viewpoints on what death could be. He believes that death is either an eternal, dreamless sleep where the dead do not perceive anything, or death is when the soul gets relocated to another place. To Socrates, the second possibility is the greater blessing because he will have the opportunity to go to a world where he can meet his predecessors and continue to examine and question people. That is, to practice philosophy eternally. Critical note: Socrates made a significant contribution to that area of logical reasoning defined by Aristotle as inductive reasoning, which is forms the basis of the Socratic discussion. He begins by searching for a general principle, takes it as a hypothesis, then sees whether it fits the facts or not, and retains it or rejects it accordingly. Now, let's begin with the actual chapter. Apology by Plato. We will go sentence by sentence. There are many reasons why I am not grieved, O man of Athens, at the vote of condemnation. Explanation: there are many reasons why I am not upset. Grieved means upset. People of Athens about the decision to convict me. Grieved means upset, sad, distressed. Condemnation means disapproval, punishment, verdict of guilt. I expected it, and am only surprised that the votes are so nearly equal, for I had thought that the majority against me would have been far larger. I was expecting this outcome, and I am surprised that the votes were almost equal. I thought more people would have voted against me. Surprised means shocked, astonished, amazed. Majority means the greater number, most. Larger means bigger, greater. But now, had 30 votes gone over to the other side, I should have been acquitted. But if 30 more votes had been on the other side, I would have been found not guilty. Acquitted means cleared, absolved, found innocent. And I may say that I have escaped Meletus. I can also say that I have avoided being harmed by Meletus. Escaped means avoided, evaded, got away from. Harmed means hurt, injured, negatively affected. And I may say more, for without the assistance of Anytus and Lycon, he would not have had a fifth part of the votes, as the law requires, in which case he would have incurred a fine of 1,000 drachmae, as is evident. The pronunciation may be wrong, check out the pronunciation. I can add more, because without the help of Anytus and Lycon, Meletus wouldn't have gotten even 1/5 of the votes which is required by law, and in that case he would have had to pay a fine of 1,000 drachmae, as is clear. Assistance means help, support. Incurred means faced, brought upon himself. Drachmae, an ancient Greek currency. Evident means clear, obvious, apparent. And so he proposes death as the penalty. So Meletus suggests that I should be punished with death. Proposes means suggests, recommends, offers. Penalty means punishment, consequence. And what shall I propose on my part, O man of Athens? Now, what should I suggest for my own punishment, people of Athens? Propose means suggest, offer. Part means role, share, contribution. Clearly, that which is my due. Clearly, I should get what I deserve. Henceforth, I will not be explaining or using the synonym of the words. You can look here at the words if you do not understand. Due means deserved, owed, rightful. Certain words I may come across which I would like to elaborate upon. And what is that which I ought to pay or to receive? And what is it that I should give or receive? Ought means should, must, have to. What shall be done to the man who has never had the wit to be idle during his whole life, but has been careless of what the many care about, wealth and family interests and military officers and speaking in the assembly and magistracies and plots and parties? What should be done to a man who has never been clever enough to live a lazy life, but has ignored the things that most people care about, such as wealth, family, military positions, public speaking, government positions, and political plots? Wit means intelligence, sense, cleverness. Idle means lazy, inactive. Magistracies means government offices. Reflecting that I was really too honest a man to follow in this way and live, I did not go where I could do no good to you or to myself, but where I could do the greatest good privately to every one of you. Thither I went, and sought to persuade every man among you that he must look to himself and seek virtue and wisdom before he looks to his private interests, and look to the state before he looks to the interests of the state, and that this should be the order which he observes in all his actions. I realized that I was too honest to live in the usual way, so I didn't go where I couldn't help either you or myself. Instead, I went where I could do the most good for each of you individually. I tried to convince each one of you that you should focus on improving yourself, seeking virtue and wisdom before caring about personal things, and putting the need of the state before your personal interests. This should be the order in which you live your life. Reflecting means thinking. Virtue means moral excellence. Wisdom means knowledge. What shall be done to such a one? Doubtless some good thing, O man of Athens, if he has his reward, and the good should be of a kind suitable to him. What should happen to such a person? Certainly something good. People of Athens, if he is rewarded, and the reward should be something appropriate for him. Doubtless means without a doubt. What would be a reward suitable to a poor man who is your benefactor, who desires leisure that he may instruct you? What would be an appropriate reward for a poor man who helps you and wants free time to teach you? Benefactor means helper. Leisure means free time. There can be no more fitting reward than maintenance in the Tritanium, O man of Athens, a reward which he deserves far more than the citizens who has won the prize at Olympia in the horse or chariot race, whether the chariots were drawn by 2 horses or by many. There is no better reward than free food and shelter in the Prytaneum. People of Athens, this is a reward that I deserve much more than someone who wins a prize at the Olympic Games, whether in a horse race or a chariot race, with 2 horses or many. Prytaneum is a public building in Athens for official gatherings. Olympia is the location of the ancient Olympic Games. For I am in want, and he has enough, and he only gives you the appearance of happiness, and I give you the reality. I am in need while he has plenty. He only shows you a false sense of happiness, but I give you the real thing. And if I am to estimate the penalty justly, I say that maintenance in the praetorium is the just written. And if I am to judge the penalty fairly, I believe that free food and shelter in the praetorium is the right reward. Perhaps you may think that I am braving you in saying this, as in what I said before about the tears and prayers. You might think that I am challenging or daring you by saying this, just like when I previously spoke about tears and prayers. Braving means challenging, daring, confronting. Tears and prayers means metaphorically suggesting emotional or manipulative pleading. But that is not the case. However, that is not true. I speak rather because I am convinced that I never intentionally wronged anyone, although I cannot convince you of that, for we have had a short conversation only. I am speaking because I truly believe I never intentionally harmed anyone, but I can't persuade you of this because our conversation has been brief. But if there were a law at Athens, such as there is in other cities, that a capital cause should not be decided in one day, then I believe that I should have convinced you, but now the time is too short. But if Athens had a law like other cities, where a serious case couldn't be decided in a single day, I believe I would have convinced you, but now the time is too short. Capital cause means a serious case, an important legal matter. Convince means to persuade. I cannot in a moment refute great slanders, and as I am convinced that I never wronged another, I will assuredly not wrong myself. I cannot quickly disprove serious lies about me, and since I am sure I never harmed anyone, I would certainly never harm myself. Refute means to disprove or prove false. Slanders means lies, false accusations. Assuredly means certainly. I will not say of myself that I deserve any evil or propose any penalty. I will not claim that I deserve any punishment or suggest any penalty. Why should I? Because I am afraid of the penalty of death which Meletus proposes. Why should I say this? Because I am scared of the death penalty that Meletus has suggested. When I do not know whether death is a good or an evil, why should I propose a penalty which would certainly be an evil? Since I do not know if death is good or bad, why would I suggest a punishment that I am sure is bad? Shall I say imprisonment? Should I suggest imprisonment as a punishment? Imprisonment means jail or incarceration. And why should I live in prison and be the slave of the magistrates of the year, of the 11? And why should I live in prison under the control of the yearly magistrates called the 11? Or shall the penalty be a fine and imprisonment until the fine is paid? Or should the punishment be a fine with imprisonment until I can pay it? There is the same objection. I should have to lie in prison, for money I have none and I cannot pay. Lie means remain or stay. The problem is the same. I would be stuck in prison because I have no money and cannot pay the fine. And if I say exile, and this may possibly be the penalty which you will affix, I must indeed be blinded by the love of life if I were to consider that when you, who are my own citizens, cannot endure my discourses and words, and have found them so grievous and odious that you would fain have done with them, others are likely to endure me. And if I suggest exile, which might be the punishment you will give me, I would have to be blind to the truth of life if I think that, since you, my fellow citizens, can't tolerate my speeches and have found them so unpleasant that you want them to stop, others will be willing to listen to me. Exile means banish, blinded means ignorant, discourses means speeches, grievous means harmful, odious means hateful, endure means to tolerate, feign means gladly, willingly. No, no, indeed, man of Athens, that is not very likely. No, in reality, people of Athens, that is not very probable. And what a life should I lead at my age, wandering from city to city, living in ever changing exile, and always being driven out. What kind of life would I have at my age, constantly moving from one city to another, living in a life of exile that is always changing and always being kicked out. Exile means banishment, for I am quite sure that into whatever place I go, as here so also there, the young man will come to me. I am sure that wherever I go, whether here or there, young people will come to me. And if I drive them away, their elders will drive me out at their desire. And if I let them come, their fathers and friends will drive me out for their sakes. And if I try to push them away, older people will force me to leave because they want it. But if I let them stay, their fathers and friends will push me out because they don't want me to influence them. Someone will say, "Yes, Socrates, but cannot you hold your tongue? And then you may go into a foreign city and no one will interfere with you." Someone might say, "Yes, Socrates, why don't you just keep quiet? Go to another city and no one will bother you." Now, I have a great difficulty in making you understand my answer to this. Now it's very hard for me to make you understand my answer to this. For if I tell you that this would be a disobedience to a divine command, and therefore that I cannot hold my tongue, you will not believe that I am serious. If I tell you that keeping quiet would disobey a divine command, and that I cannot be silent because of this, you will not believe that I am serious. And if I say again that the greatest good of man is daily to converse about virtue, and all that concerning which you hear me examining myself and others, and that the life which is unexamined is not worth living, that you are still less likely to believe. Where I have clearly understood the sentence itself, I'll not go into the explanation or the synonyms. I'll only go into it if I feel that I haven't understood the sentence. Otherwise, you can read the explanation if you want to from here on. And yet, what I say is true, although a thing of which it is hard for me to persuade you. Moreover, I am not accustomed to think that I deserve any punishment. Had I money, I might have proposed to give you what I had, and have been none the worse. But you see that I have none, and can only ask you to proportion the fine to my means. However, I think that I cannot, I think that I could afford a mine, and therefore I propose that penalty. Plato, Crito, Critobulus, and Apollodorus, my friends here, bid me say 30 minae, and they will be the sureties. Explanation: I think I can pay a fine of 1 mina, so I propose that amount. Plato, Crito, Critobulus, and Apollodorus, my friends here, told me to suggest 30 minae, and they will guarantee the payment. Mine is a unit of ancient Greek currency. Sureties are guarantors. Well then, say 30 minae. Let that be the penalty. For that, there will be ample security to you. Not much time will be gained, O Athenians, in return for the evil name which you will get from the detractors of the city, who will say that you killed Socrates, a wise man. For they will call me wise even although I am not wise when they want to reproach you. Explanation: they will call me wise even though I am not, simply to blame you. Reproach means to criticize or blame. If you had waited a little while, your desire would have been fulfilled in the course of nature. If you had waited a bit longer, you would have gotten what you wanted naturally, as I am very old and close to dying anyway. For I am far advanced in years, as you may perceive, and not far from death. I am speaking now only to those of you who have condemned me to death. Condemned means sentenced, judged. And I have another thing to say to them. You think that I was convicted through deficiency of words? I mean that if I had thought fit to leave nothing undone, nothing unsaid, I might have gained an acquittal. Explanation: I want to say this to you. You think I was convicted because I didn't speak enough? And that if I had said everything and done everything right, I might have been found innocent? Not so. The deficiency which led to my conviction was not of words, certainly not. But I had not the boldness, or impudence, or inclination to address you as you would have liked me to address you, weeping and wailing and lamenting, and saying and doing many things which you have been accustomed to hear from others, and which, as I say, are unworthy of me. Explanation: the reason I was convicted was because I didn't have the courage, disrespect, or desire to speak to you the way you expected me to, crying, begging, and saying things others say, which I believe are beneath me. Impudence means disrespect, rudeness. Lamenting means crying. But I thought that I ought not to do anything common or mean in the hour of danger, nor do I now repent of the manner of my defense, and I would rather die having spoken after my manner than speak in your manner and live. For neither in war nor yet at law ought any man to use every way of escaping death. Explanation: neither in war nor in court should anyone use any possible method to escape death. For often in battle there is no doubt that if a man will throw away his arms and fall on his knees before his pursuers, he may escape that death. And in other dangers there are other ways of escaping death, if a man is willing to say and do anything. The difficulty, my friends, is not in avoiding death, but in avoiding unrighteousness, for that runs faster than death. The real challenge, explanation, the real challenge, my friends, is not avoiding death, but avoiding injustice, because injustice moves quicker than death. Unrighteousness is injustice, immorality. I am old and move slowly, and the slower runner has overtaken me, and my accusers are keen and quick, and the faster runner, who is unrighteousness, has overtaken them. I am old and slow, so death, the slower runner, has caught up with me. My accusers, however, are quick, and the faster runner, which is injustice, has passed them. And now I depart, hence condemned by you to suffer the penalty of death. And they too go their ways, condemned by the truth to suffer the penalty of villainy and wrong. And I must abide by my award. Let them abide by theirs. Explanation. Now I leave, condemned by you to die, and they too will face their punishment, which is to suffer for their wrongdoing. I must accept my fate, and they must accept theirs. Villainy means wickedness, evil. I suppose that these things may be regarded as fated, and I think that they are well. I suppose this was meant to happen, and I believe it is for the best. And now, O man, who have condemned me, I would fain prophesy to you, for I am about to die, and that is the hour in which men are gifted with prophetic power. Now I want to predict something to you, the men who have condemned me, because I am about to die, and this is the time when people can have prophetic powers. Feign means gladly, willingly. Prophecy means to predict, foretell. And I prophesy, and I prophesy to you who are my murderers, that immediately after my death, punishment far heavier than you have inflicted on me will surely await you. Explanation. I predict that after my death, you, my murderers, will face a punishment far worse than the one you have given me. Me, you have killed because you wanted to escape the accuser and not to give an account of your lives. Explanation. You killed me because you wanted to avoid facing someone who would accuse you and because you didn't want to answer for how you live. But that will not be as you suppose, far otherwise. Explanation. But what you think will happen is not the case. It will be very different. For I say that there will be more accusers of you than there are now, accusers whom hereto I have restrained, and as they are younger, they will be more severe with you, and you will be more offended at them. Explanation. I say that there will be more people accusing you than there are now, people whom I have held back, and because you are younger, they'll be harsher and you will find them even more annoying. Here too means until now, restrained means prevented, severe means harsh, offended means bothered, angered. For if you think that by killing men you can avoid the accuser censoring your lives, you are mistaken. That is not a way of escape which is either possible or honorable. The easiest and noblest way is not to be crushing others, but to be improving yourselves. Explanation. If you think killing people will stop the accuser from criticizing how you live, you are wrong. That is not a way to escape, and it's neither possible nor honorable. The easiest and best way is not to harm others, but to work on improving yourself. This is the prophecy which I utter before my departure to the judges who have condemned me. Friends who would have acquitted me, I would like also to talk with you about this thing which has happened while the magistrates are busy and before I go to the place at which I must die. Stay then awhile, for we may as well talk with one another while there is time. You are my friends, and I should like to show you the meaning of this event which has happened to me. O my judges, for you I may truly call judges, I should like to tell you of a wonderful circumstance. Here too, the familiar oracle within me has constantly been in the habit of opposing me, even about trifles, if I was going to make a slip or error about anything. And now, as you see, there has come upon me that which may be thought and is generally believed to be the last and worst evil. Explanation. Until now, my inner voice, oracle, has always stopped me when I was about to make a mistake, even with small things. But now, as you see, I am facing what most people think is the worst possible outcome, death. But the oracle made no sign of opposition, either as I was leaving my house and going out in the morning, or when I was going up into this court, or while I was speaking at anything which I was going to say. And yet I have often been stopped in the middle of a speech. But now, in nothing I either said or did touching this matter has the oracle opposed me. But this time, explanation, but this time my inner voice didn't stop me at any point. Not when I left my house, not when I came into the court, and not even when I was speaking. Normally it would have interrupted me, but it didn't this time. What do I take to be the explanation of this? I will tell you. I regard this as a proof that what has happened to me is a good, and that those of us who think that death is an evil are in error. Explanation. So, what does this mean? I believe it shows that what's happening to me is actually good, and that people who see death as an evil are mistaken. This is a great proof to me of what I am saying, for the customary sign would surely have opposed me had I been going to evil and not to good. Let us reflect in another way, and we shall see that there is great reason to hope that death is a good for one of two things. Either death is a state of nothingness and utter unconsciousness, or as men say, there is a change and migration of the soul from this world to another. Explanation. Let's think about it differently. There are two possibilities. Either death is completely nothingness, or it's a journey of the soul to another world. Now, if you suppose that there is no consciousness, but a sleep like the sleep of him who is undisturbed even by the sight of dreams, death will be an unspeakable again. Explanation. If you imagine that death is like a peaceful sleep with no dreams, it would be an incredible gain, far better than life. For if a person were to select the night in which his sleep was undisturbed, even by dreams, and were to compare with this the other days and nights of his life, then were to tell us now how many days and nights he had passed in the course of his life better and more pleasantly than this one. I think that any man, I will not say a private man, but even the great king, will not find many such days or nights when compared with the others. Explanation. If a person could choose the best night of sleep, completely undisturbed by dreams, and compare it with other days of his life, I believe that even a great king wouldn't find many days better than that one peaceful night. Now, if death is like this, I say that to die is gain. for eternity is then only a single night. Explanation. So if death is like this peaceful sleep, I say that dying is a gain because eternity would just be one long calm night. But if death is the journey to another place, and there, as men say, all the dead are, what good, O my friends and judges, can be greater than this? If indeed, when the pilgrim arrives in the world below, he is delivered from the professors of justice in this world, and finds the true judges who are said to give judgment there, Minos and Rhadamanthus and Acus and Triptolemus and other sons of God who were righteous in their own life, that pilgrimage will be worth making. Explanation. If when the soul arrives in the afterlife, it's freed from the unjust judges on earth and meets the true judges like Minos, Rhadamanthus, Acus, and Triptolemus, who lived righteous lives, then the journey will be well worth it. What would not a man give if he might converse with Orpheus and Muses and Hesiod and Homer? Explanation. What wouldn't a man give to speak with great figures like Orpheus, Messios, Hesiod, and Homer? Nay, if this be true, let me die again and again. Explanation. If this is true, I would gladly die over and over again. Nay means no, on the contrary. I too shall have a wonderful interest in a place where I can converse with Palamedes and Ajax, the son of Telamon, and other heroes of old who have suffered death through an unjust judgment, and there will be no small pleasure, as I think, in comparing my own sufferings with theirs. Explanation. I would be deeply interested in a place where I could speak with people like Palamedes, Ajax, and other ancient heroes who suffered unjust death, and I think it would be very enjoyable to compare my suffering with theirs. Above all, I shall be able to continue my search into true and false knowledge, as in this world, so also in that. I shall find out who is wise and who pretends to be wise and is not. What would not a man give, O judges, to be able to examine the leader of the great Trojan expedition, or Odysseus, or Sisyphus, or numberless others, men and women too? Trojan expedition, the Trojan War. What infinite delight would there be in conversing with them and asking them questions? For in that world they do not put a man to death for this, certainly not. For besides being happier in that world than in this, they will be immortal if what is said is true. Explanation. And besides being happier in that world than in this one, they will be immortal if what people say is true. In this final passage, Socrates addresses his judges and friends, sharing his thoughts on death, his life, and his legacy. Statement. Wherefore, O judges, be of good cheer about death, and know this of a truth, that no evil can happen to a good man either in life or after death. Explanation. So judges, do not fear death or consider it evil. Understand this truth. A good person cannot truly suffer any harm, whether in life or after death. He and his are not neglected by the gods, nor has my own approaching end happened by mere chance. Explanation: a good person and their loved ones are not forgotten by the gods. My coming death is not random, it is part of a greater plan. But I see clearly that to die and be released was better for me, and therefore the oracle gave no sign. For which reason also, for which reason also, I am not angry with my accusers or my condemners. They have done me no harm, although neither of them meant to do me any good, and for this I may gently blame them. Still, I have a favor to ask of them. When my sons are grown up, I would ask you, O my friends, to punish them, and I would have you trouble them as I have troubled you, if they seem to care about riches or anything more than about virtue, or if they pretend to be something when they are really nothing. Then reprove them as I have reproved you for not caring about that for which they ought to care, and thinking that they are something when they are really nothing. Explanation: I have one request of you. When my sons grow up, I ask that you treat them as I have treated you. If they care more about wealth or other things than about virtue, or if they pretend to be something they are not, then correct them just as I have corrected you for failing to care about what truly matters. And if you do this, I and my sons will have received justice at your hands. The hour of departure has arrived, and we go our ways, I to die and you to live, which is better God only knows. In this In these final words, Socrates expresses his calm acceptance of death, his forgiveness of his accusers, and his hope that his sons will follow his example of pursuing virtue over material wealth. He presents his death as a release, a good thing, and leaves his friends and the judges with a reminder to focus on what truly matters in life. He also maintains his belief that death is not to be feared, and that his own passing is a part of a divine plan. With this, I end the chapter. Thank you very much for listening. If you found it useful, do share the link with your friends. Take care. Bye bye. Have a nice day and enjoy your life.